All right, thank you all for coming. This is part 3, Perfect is the Enemy of Great. This time we're going to ask, are you good enough? Meaning all of you, actually. So we'll find out the answer to that question today. And we're going to talk about today as the final barriers. When is good enough? And that's really the biggest challenge that advanced reefers face. How many of you here consider yourself a intermediate to advanced reefer? Yeah, so that's about half the crowd. So the other half, you're going to run in this problem, so you can learn from it now. The other half, you're probably going to know exactly what I'm talking about later. So these are all my tanks. We're going to go ahead and judge them. I asked a jury of my peers to judge all of my tanks so you can talk about what really is good enough, and they're going to tell me not good enough is the answer. And then we're going to go through the universal perfect troll matrix. You're probably wondering what that is. I'll tell you in a second. We're also going to tell you, where do we go from here? So now that we're landing here, we taught you how to do make reefing easier. We gave you 9 core principles how to do it. Where does this go? And what does truly epic tank look like? And I'll give you a hint. It doesn't look like that one, even though I would actually like to set that one up myself. That one has the little biotopes all over the bottom, super cool. We're also going to find out what's next for me. All right, for those of you who don't know, my name is Ryan Batchelor. I'm a 20-year reefer that started with a 90 wave in 2004 and some hang-on gear. I think it turned out pretty good. I'm co-founder of Bulk Reef Supply, so many of you probably shop there. I'm also founder of BRStv. That has 110 million questions answered. A lot of people think those things are views, but I like to think about them as questions that people had, and then we gave them answers, and they found them here. And most recently, the recipient of MASNA's Lifetime Achievement Pioneer Award. Found that out yesterday. Thank you so much. That is definitely a highlight of my professional year, but probably my entire career. So thank you, MASNA. All right, so when is good enough? This was actually sponsored by a friend of mine named Ryan Thompson. He's a moderator of our group. And I asked him what he thought about episode 1 and 2. And what he says, it got me to think about a list that I would give as someone if they asked me what has brought me the most success. And I thought, oh man, mission accomplished. If you're thinking about it that way. And he gave a list of things, and they're all good, but there's one that really stood out to me. And that was stop comparing your tank to others. And I had never really thought about it that way, but there is a reason for that. No matter how good your tank is, if you compare it to somebody else's, theirs will always look better, and then it really bums you out and brings you down. And Mark Twain would agree. He would tell you that comparison is actually the death of joy, and you're definitely going to find that out today. All right, and so when you're comparing it, what are you comparing it against? Is it these tanks of the month? I would tell you that this tank is awesome. It's not huge. It's got a bunch of hang-on gear, it looks like, but the color theory is awesome. The balance is awesome. The choice of colors is awesome. It's a beautiful, beautiful tank. And the fact that it's easy is actually part of it. None of these corals are super elite, expensive corals. That's part of what makes it a 10 for me. So, but what's the problem here is, what happens when you look at this one? Now this one, just a little bit bigger, has harder corals. These SPS corals, a small thing, is really actually harder to do. So is this one actually better than the last one? And what does that mean? Is that last one now less than? But what about this one? All of a sudden now I got a mixed tank, which is harder than the acro tank. It's bigger, it's got more corals. Does it mean that the other one is now less than and this one's better than that? What about this one? I mean, this one's just chock full of corals. They're all pastel and they're beautiful. It's got negative space, it's an island. It's beautiful. But what about this one here? This one doesn't have the same color theory, but what it does have is artistic appeal. This thing looks like it's a living piece of art that belongs in my house. This is something that I would be proud of. But does it make all the other ones less than? What about this one here now? Same negative space, same awesome visual appeal, but the color's even better. Less than? Or what about this one? Most of this one's an NPS tank, non-photosynthetic. Most people wouldn't even know where to buy these corals, much less how to care for them. Does it make it better than all of those other tanks? All of those less than? And you can start to see now, when we look at all of these tanks and you're comparing them, which one is really a 10? And the answer is they're all 10, but they're not when you look at them next to each other and compare them. And that's why the comparison is the death of joy. So regardless of where you are in the hobby today, and it sounded like we had a mix of people in here, I'm going to show you exactly why your tank is awesome. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, but most importantly, yourself. Because as you get better at this, that's where this is going to come from. Not necessarily the external world, but you wanting to strive being better, and you know what good looks like, and you never let yourself win. That's because it's perfectionism. And you just keep pushing this ball up the hill, hoping that you can find the perfect tank. But there's also the external world, and the internet trolls are out there telling you not good enough, and you're living up to somebody else's dreams. All right, but to show this to you, I'm going to demonstrate how the comparison robs the death of joy. I'm going to put my own head in the chopping block. I asked a jury of my peers to judge or troll my tanks. They weren't nice on all of them. And then I'll share how that fits inside the perfect troll matrix. Probably wonder what that is. What it is where personal joy is found. Somewhere in this chart or graph or matrix is where your joy is. I'm going to help you find it today. Might be a little bit different than mine, but it probably isn't that much different. And on the left-hand side here is personal expectations, like 1 through 10. This is like, how awesome do I want my tank to be? And we're going to call that the perfect access. Now you're probably going to think, well, I don't know, 10, right? Who doesn't want to have a 10 perfect tank? Well, that's great. Except for that's how the mythical creature, man. It's called the never good enough zone. I've never seen a 9.5 that didn't quickly find out that it's really an 8 or even an 8.5. They fixed those problems, but then they find another tank and they find out that their fixed 9.5 is really an 8.5, and it just seesaws. 10 is a mythical creature. All right, but on the other axis is others' expectations. Now, this is probably your friends, coming over your tank, and they're going to tell you, your tank is awesome and everything, but then one of your buddies is going to be like, I don't know, is that some cyan over there in the corner? What's up with that algae, dude? Or why you got little red bugs, man? What are you doing wrong? And all of a sudden, this thing that you're really proud of is less than, right? But it also can be this. It can be the internet troll. When you're starting to share in others' expectations. So you got this guy sitting around in his own pile of garbage telling you that your tank isn't good enough. That's pretty silly. All right, so you might be thinking, all right, well, who wants to be run by more than like a 1 troll? That's ridiculous. I don't want to let trolls run me. Well, the reality is man, like a 4 troll is probably good, because the world tries to push us to be better. It takes our own standards and lets us like push towards a little bit more than we're capable of. And so having a little bit in the universe is good, but never go more than a 4 troll, man. It's not their tank. Don't let them decide whether or not it is a good tank for you. And for that reason, we're going to call that the no-go area. We're not going to go in here. We're going to try to stay out of this. But up there, too, above an 8 perfect, is what I'd also call the not good enough zone. Now it's red, but it's not a no-go zone, because this is also where the tanks of months are. This is where the 0.01% of tanks come from. This is the world's pushing you hard, you're pushing you hard, and you're always striving for a 10. You'll probably never get there, but I'm going to produce this type of 0.01% tanks. But down here, man, is the happiest. Okay, now I heard a good laugh out of there because she probably already knows. All right, but down here is the happiest, and this is like below a 3 perfect. How could that possibly be? It's because ignorance is bliss. This is probably your first tank, and you just don't know any better, man. This is your first tank, you set it up, you never even thought to look to the world whether or not it's good. You set it up, like all your friends never seen anything like this before. They come over and they're like, wow, look at this like world that I've never seen before. And you're like, yeah, I did that. It's super, super exciting, and you just don't know. You don't even know what good looks like. All right, that's again where the comparison is death is joy. I don't have anything to compare it against. All I know is I love it, my friends love it, everybody loves it. So what's this area right here? This is actually the landing zone. It's called the fun zone. So above a 3 perfect, below an 8, a little bit of the world's coming in. You know what? This is the area where you're just getting better and better and better and better, and you're pushing yourself, and you're doing cool things. Stay in that zone, and you'll probably be the happiest. So what do you do with this? Well, you can make a conscious decision where you want to land. You can aim for it. Those are all the newer people in the room. All the other people, you can say, oh, I'm kind of probably getting a little closer to that danger zone I thought, or maybe the no-go zone at the top too. And you can fix that and let yourself enjoy it, because you're going to hear a story today from me, how all of this affected me and all my tanks. You'll probably identify with some of it. So for that reason, we're going to go through all of my tanks. The jury is here. I grayed out the troll, because these aren't actual trolls. These are friends of mine, but they're honest friends, and they're not going to pull the punch on me. You'll see for sure. Juror number 1, man, is a 40-year reefer that loves SPS tanks. Perfection is a goal driven by internal and external forces. So this is somebody who's been setting up reef tanks for a very long time, taught by his dad. Worked at fish stores as a kid. His tank is a mythical creature, though. You know what? He's a CEO, a father, away from home 50% of the time. And if he doesn't have time to produce a 10 out of 10, it's just going to be nothing. He's not going to do it unless he can do a 10 out of 10. Saw a nod right over there. Saw another one. You know what? I talked to probably 20 people today that are all in this world where if it's not 10 out of 10, I ain't going to do it. Which is kind of tragic, man, because you're kind of like without a tank then. And there's other solutions to it, but this is a very, very common problem. And I got to tell you, it feels real to me too. I want to do 10 out of 10s all the time. But the answer is, if I don't feel like I can do that, there is a type of tank I could do as 10 out of 10. Go do that one. Juror number 2 prioritizes realistic, achievable results. A tank life balance in tune with the average reefer, capable of a tank of the month, but it's not his goal. This is actually almost all of my peers. Almost all of my peers could actually produce a tank of the month if that was their one and only goal. His tank looks like this, his last one. It was his pride and joy, built to fit his life. He's working on the next dream. And to be honest, if you looked at that tank, it's probably a little bit shy of many of the tanks of the month, but it actually is about the same as some of them. He's not that far away, a little bit of pruning. But he wasn't really after that goal. He was just trying to have a good time. And that last little bit he wasn't after. Juror number 3 has produced a tank of the month. This is one of those 1 in 10,000 style tanks. This is something that's really, truly special. He's a thought leader to many, and a peer I go to when I want an answer based on results and experience. His name is Greg Carroll. You'll see him walking around the show today. You might even see him in the room here. Greg Carroll, his feedback goes way beyond keeping things alive. He's concerned with a visually powerful display that respects the animals under his care, and I'm going to repeat that. He's looking for a visually powerful display that respects the animals under his care. And you're going to see that throughout all of his feedback today because it is very unique. All right, as president of SCMAS, he also understands the needs of reefers at every stage. This is a unique trait because most of us are looking through this tunnel of wherever we happen to be at the moment. Because he's president of this club, he's actually able to think about new reefers, advanced reefers, and everybody's needs. All right. His last tank, he's been honored with Reef Tank of the Month. And he's been honored with the Reef Tank of the Month in the past. And his current tank is even better. But he says he wouldn't accept the Tank of the Month yet. It's not there yet. So you look at this tank and he's saying, oh man, not there yet. Not, you're seeing a little bit of that, not good enough. Less than here even. But how many of you would be happy if you produce a tank like that? Yeah, that's like probably the whole room here. It's a beautiful, beautiful tank. All right, so let's go ahead and rate all my tanks. Starting with number 1. Who recognizes this? This is my very first tank. There's a couple of people that have been paying attention. All right, so this is my very first tank. It was a 90 wave that I started back in 2004. Juror number 1, man, told me that it is dirty. It's a 2. The white bases, average corals, it's overgrown. Okay, if you look at this, you can actually see those things, man. There's white bases there. It's dirty. I didn't really film it for it to be showed here 20 years later, but it has average corals in it. You know, and that's kind of what you see because the world told you this. But you know what juror number 2 says? It's an 8. It needs fish, pruning, and general care. You know what? Now that he says that, that's what I see instead now. And you can see like how influenced you are by what somebody else says about your tank, because really it is that. If I threw a few more colorful fish in there, I pruned those corals a little bit, gave a couple of general care, dude, it's pretty close to an 8. You know what Greg would say? It's a 6. Healthy, but not what I like. Old wall-type aquascape, trying to do too much, too vertical, wouldn't say anything's wow, just a decent mixed reef. Really care about the visual appeal of this thing. And I gotta tell you too, I hate the wall aquascape, but it was a 90 wave. You know, when it's that tall and that shallow, then what am I gonna do? You know, you just kind of build it up. I would go 120 over a 90 every day of the week now. But, you know what? I think he's right, man. It's healthy, but the aquascape isn't that great. It is probably trying to do too much. It's too vertical. There isn't anything really wow in here. 6 is probably about right. But you know what, man? World says it's a 286, but I feel like it's a 10. And you know, in real time, man, this is my first rodeo. This is my first tank. It's got SPS in it, it's got LPS in it, I got softies, I got clams, I got anemones, all living harmoniously. I loved it, friends loved it. You know, everybody I know is calling me the fish guy, man. I just feel like I'm killing it. This is a 10. Who cares what any of those people think? You know, this is, you know, the ignorance zone, really, you know, but I don't care. This is the most fun. All right. So that's where it's going to land, right here. 2 perfect, 1 troll, ignorance is truly bliss. And so I think a lot of people with their first tank will probably remember it this way. All right, but what about tank number 2 here? Does anybody recognize this one? One person, bravo. All right, so juror number 1 says blah, average coral, says average again, and then just lacks color. You can tell that he's really harsh on me. But, like, won't even give me a real number, just blah. Juror number 2, 8 to 8.5, man. Beautiful. LPS, some people don't have. LPS and SPS in the same par. Mixed tanks are not easy, specifically not easy in a 40-gallon breeder, where it's only the difference is just inches between the SPS and the LPS. You know what? The difference between, if you saw blah, you could see blah here, but if somebody says 8.5, you can see that too. It's like, it's so crazy how words can influence what you see. Greg would say it's a 7. Looks staged, rock is too high, just trying to fill space, but innovative, because no one was doing negative space back then. Thank you, Greg. Because I didn't like those wall aquascapes. Now when I try to do something, this is 15 years ago, I want the fish to be able to swim in, around, through. I want the visual sense of depth. The fact that the corals look staged kind of means it was like an Insta-tank. It was an Insta-tank a year before this, but I think it's doing pretty well. And those of you who don't know, this is the How to Start a Saltwater Aquarium series with Reed and me in the basement. This is the very first attempt to teach other people how to do this as well. Jury says blah, 7, 8, but I'm feeling like a solid 9, man. I learned so much about reefing in this video. 3 locations, it's fun, it's manageable. I had this thing down in my office in the basement, loved it so much I moved it into my bedroom where we could see it more often. I loved it so much from there, I moved it to my office at work where I see it all day long. This was fun, man. I trained SPS and LPS corals to live harmoniously in a small tank. Solid 9. You know what? Right there in the smack of the fun zone. 5 perfect, 2 troll, pushing my limits. I know people are watching. Some are judging, but this is just fun. I'm enjoying myself. All right, juror number 3, or tank number 3. Juror number 1, I've turned him. He now says he loves his tank. Still won't give me a number. Juror number 2, 9.5, because it's a special purpose tank that was nailed in its own right. It's beautiful. And Greg, for what it is, man, that's a 9 because it's a species tank. I like that the rock is lower. Fish have room to swim. It's natural looking, different elevation from left to right, which is visually interesting. Again, what he's looking for is a visually powerful display that respects the animals that are in there, and that's how he's judging it. That's the right way to judge it, by the way. All right. So for those of you who don't know, this is the Clown Harem tank. Anybody seen this series before? Oh, it's like about half of you. So this one, I was told you couldn't do this. You can't actually have a harem of clowns. It turned out to not be true. We did it for 4.5 years. It only came down because we wanted to do the next thing. So here's the problem, though. I said me too, but really, this is easy. Anyone could do this. No Colorado sunburst, Nexus, fancy clowns, or anything special. World says it's loved to 9.5, but I'm feeling like 7.5. It could be better. This is why. I'm starting to judge the tanks through others' eyes. Strangers on the internet, man. And let strangers on the internet decide whether or not I have joy in what I do. And the troll likes to make internet mad. Troll likes to anger. Troll wants people to be as miserable as troll. And we've seen all these people around, I'm sure. The whole room's nodding their head. All right, you know what? It's ridiculous though, because I'm now judging this tank here by the fact of it doesn't have $20,000 worth of fancy anemones in it. Like, in my head, you're right, I'm supposed to be doing this as best I possibly can. I'm supposed to be on YouTube creating this coolest thing ever. Why doesn't I have just filled with $2,000 a piece anemones? Yeah, that was the wrong move, man. The fact that we were able to create something beautiful and accessible to everybody in the room is why it's a 10. That anybody could do this. Because who in the room's got a wallet for $20,000 in anemones? Not one person here. There's somebody out there that has that, but that ain't all of us. So the fact that we can do this on a budget is actually what makes it a 10, and I'm letting the wrong message come through when I'm hearing it. All right, for that reason, it's an 8 perfect 3 troll. I'm pushing my limits on what's possible. I was told that this couldn't be done. I researched the hell out of it, and then we did it for 4.5 years. I'm progressing my hobby. I'm loving it. However, I'm definitely now navigating external expectations. And some of the more experienced reefers in the room are starting to say, yeah, this sounds a little bit like my journey too. A little different, but still. All right, so rate this tank. Does anybody know what this one is? Oh, just one. Wow, I think you're gonna know what it is in a second. I see O out here. So jury number 1 says 10 out of 10. All right, I've definitely turned him. You can tell he's an acro lover, by the way. All right, jury number 2. Juror number 2 says 9.5. This is the goal. Establish great mixed reef placement, solid shadows work, pruning 0.5. This is the nicest thing I'm gonna hear all day, which is this is the goal, because this was a tank that was designed to be fun and also teach all of you how to do this as well. So if this really is the goal and there's really a plot out here for all of you to follow to do it, it's the nicest thing anybody could say to me. Greg would say 10. You know what? 9.5. Only criticism is its limited difference in elevation. Scape's too high for the fish. The fish should be able to swim above the acros. Cares about a visually powerful display that respects these animals. It's in everything he says. All right. For those who don't know, this is the 52 weeks of reefing. This is the BRS 160. Do you recognize it now? Yeah, I see a bunch of heads. All right. So, this was that tank. But I said, really? I love it too. But it's way overgrown. The corals are growing out of the water. Color theory could be better, and it needs more fish. All right, that's ridiculous, because the world loves it, man, but that's in my head. And this time it isn't actually the trolls here. What this really is that I now know what good looks like, and I want it. I now know what reef tanks of the month look like. I've been exposed to them, not just in photos, but I've seen them in person now, that caliber of tank. And I want this for me, and then I want to be able to teach all of you the same things, right? So I'm letting all that in my head, man. I know what good looks like. I'm aspiring to reach it. External forces are pushing me to be my best. It's very satisfying, man, but it comes with some weight. For that reason, I'm like right on the edge. 4 troll, 9 perfection. All right, next one. Tank 5. Does anybody know what this one is? Man, you got them all. All right, so juror number 1 says 5 at best. It's basic, average, no skill required. And so when you see this, is that what you see? Basic, average, no skill required? Well, I don't know, if you've been doing this for a while, you might be able to see that, I guess. But you know what juror number 2 says? A7 Softy. Great movement, beautiful, closer to what a first-time person should do to get a win underneath their belt. And that is what I really wanted to hear, because that's what this was for again. That's really what it's about. How do you get that first win under your belt? And if you could teach somebody that, bravo. But you know what? Greg says 9, man. What a stark difference. What he says is, got to give it a good grade. Those corals were not placed. They're healthy, grown on the rock, and I can respect that. Great Softy tank. Tang police gonna hate. Yeah, there's a purple tang in a 60-gallon tank there. So yeah, man, again, visually powerful display, cares about the health of the animals. Okay, so for me, this is the ULM tank, by the way. So we tried to set up a bunch of tanks as a ultra-low maintenance tank, make it really easy. This was the Softy of one of those. It's basic, but I think a lot of reefers would love this. This might be a first tank for many people. It also might be just a realistic tank. One that tries to find that work-life tank balance, that is just trying to make it easier. Or it could actually be the corals you love, because they don't have to be expensive or hard to be beautiful and something that you really enjoy. And so for a first ULM tank, this is just a win. I'm not going to rate it either. This isn't worthy of a 0 to 10. It's just a win if those are your goals. All right, but where does it land? Right square in the fun zone, man. This is like a 5 perfect, 1 troll. It's just a teaching or exploration tank. It's easy to feel great about this tank, both internally and externally. All right, who knows this one? Oh, you don't? Oh, you do? Yes, all right. All right, okay, so juror number 1 says, okay, this is my favorite. All right, definitely turned him. I'm like, this call's going better for me now. All right, juror number 2 says 9, man. Color's good, lighting's good, hard to care for in a small tank, needs fish. I mean, there's almost more acros than there is water in this tank, so it is definitely harder to care for in a small tank. And man, Greg gives me a 10. I'm pretty happy with that. 10, healthy, well-placed, eye-catching, but no fish, no room to swim, capped out in time for an upgrade. And that is the reality of it. When you have a tank like this, it fills out, and you got 2 choices. You either get really good at bonsai, or you get a bigger tank. I've never actually been that great at bonsai, so it's probably a new skill for me. All right. This is the first of 2 WWC hybrid method tanks. So we did 2 of them. We decided that we want to take what works in the farm environment, mix it with what works at a home environment, combine that knowledge set, and bring it to you guys. And that was the first of that, so you could follow that if you wanted to. World says 10, but I'm feeling like, yeah, but these are easy, common corals. Yeah, I can remember putting that video out and seeing this comment. 300 comments about how much I love it. Yeah, I don't know why you ignore all those ones, but there's one in there that says those are easy, common corals, and that's the one that sticks in my brain. Like, less than, because it's not filled with home wreckers and $3,000 Walt Disneys and all these kinds of crazy stuff, right? But the world's telling you have to do that to be a success. But then if I did that, then I'm telling all of you that you need $20,000 of coral in a 30-gallon tank, man, to be a success. What a ridiculous thing. So the fact that you can do it with easy corals that grow fast, and anybody can do this? To me, that's what makes it a 10. That makes it, achievable by anybody. So that troll there, man, it's getting in my head. You can see this starting to inch in here. All right, so where does it land? Yeah, I've crossed over to the danger no-go zone now, man. This is starting to get in my head. I'm super happy with the results, but the more effort you put into something, the harder criticism is to hear, even if it's the irrational troll drabber. It's just hard to hear when you pour your life into something that somebody else doesn't like it. All right, so juror number 1 says, now this is a 10. I'm not really sure if that means it's higher than his favorite or not, or the last one, but at least he's happy with it. All right. So let's take number 7. So juror number 2 says 8.5, color's good, a nice fish and growth. Now this is an important thing, man. I say we're all looking for that special something that makes a 10, but it's different for us all. So there's something about this tank here that he doesn't see a 10 in. And then you probably saw that earlier in this presentation when you were looking at all of those tanks of the month. Some of them you were nodding your head saying, yeah, that's a 10. And some of you are like, I don't know. And if you went and looked at some of the other ones, it wouldn't speak to you either. It doesn't make any of them less than 10. It just means it didn't speak to you the same way. And so this one didn't to him. But you know what Greg says? Close to a 10. Amazing. Fish can swim above and around, great growth, particularly like the potential for this tank. Only getting better. Acros are growing out and tabling. They table when they get sufficient light and flow, reach the surface when they don't. Visually powerful display that respects the animals in there. But more than that, he's not just even looking for that. He can see the growth patterns of these animals and say, you know what? You're providing for the biological needs of this animal in a way that visually I can see it in the health of this animal. He's basing it on how well you care for the animals, which is the right way to do it. All right, so this is the second tank from the WWC hybrid method. I said, really, man, but there's a brown one, And I gotta be honest, this is just in my head. I'm just looking at the tank. The tank's filled with corals that are beautiful, but literally there's a brown one in there somewhere, and it's the only one I can see. That's just what sticks out because I just want to be better. It's less than if there's a brown one in here. And why is that, man? It's because comparison's the death of joy. And you know what? You might be thinking, hey, I'm comparing it to all these Reef tanks of the month. But I'm not. I'm comparing it to something else. To do this series, I went down to Worldwide many times. And here's this 500-gallon tank. It's just chock full of corals, man. There's more corals than you ever see in your whole lifetime, man, in this 500-gallon tank. This is what I'm comparing it against. This is my goal. But it's really not this one, man, actually. You know what it is? It's this one. Because right on the corner is a 900-gallon tank. It's just filled with coral. This is my standard. This is what I'm trying to achieve now. And if I don't do this, I'm a failure, which is ridiculous, right? And this isn't a 1 in 10,000 tank, man. It's a 1 in 100,000 tank. This is a tank built by the leading farmers and store in the country who has a near infinite budget to collect corals. There's probably hundreds of thousands of dollars in coral in here. So unless I'm producing a 900-gallon tank with hundreds of thousands of dollars in coral, not good enough. And that's how I'm feeling. So I look at this, just like, well, it's not that. It's sad, isn't it? It creates this feeling, man. Because there were roses, and I was just a dandelion. It just really kind of makes you feel like I haven't done good enough. And it's ridiculous. Because who would have this tank and say, I haven't done good enough? Who would be happy with this? Which is virtually, it's everybody, Because it's a super awesome tank. All right, so where does this tank land? Well, about a 7, or a 10 perfection, 7 external influence. It was the best result yet, but imaginary expectations take away the fun and the joy of reefing. You know, I'm pushing my limits. I'm flying all over the country, you know, to learn about as much as I can. Those teams are flying up to Minnesota. We're spending endless times on calls, producing 30 videos for all of you guys to be able to produce this, pushing the limits. And one thing I'd like to say here is the people like to talk about what WWC corals cost, because they're not the cheapest, and they also have some of those LE things out there. But what they should be talking about is the quality and quantity of free information they provide. Because so much of that information, that series, and what went into producing both those tanks, they gave away for free. Victor and Josh are the single best knowledge resource I've ever encountered in decades of reefing. They advanced my ability to do this through that series more than probably anything else. And because of that, I think that they advanced a bunch of yours as well. So if you think about it, I teach system design, science, biology, and exploration. And I like to think that what I do best is take complex things and boil them down to the things that are like accessible to the average human being without making them too nerdy. But you know what Josh does? He grows and colors coral as a career choice. He will touch more coral in a week than I will touch in a lifetime. And like most people, several lifetimes. And that's why I'm able to learn so much from him, because he can find out so many different things that works and doesn't work. Elliot, also his career choice is your fisher's health. You know what? Like, he will also touch more fish in a week than I will touch in a lifetime. And I can learn so much from him as well. And so that's tank 8. All of my peers' knowledge now, my own experiences, and an insane budget are now applied to tank 8. All right. But juror number 1 tells me that it's a 7, man. Corals are green and brown. And he's right. If you looked at it, some of the corals are green and some of them are brown. But you know what juror number 2 says? He says, can't beat the fish selection. We want to impress ourselves, but we also want people to notice and say, oh man. And I got to tell you, that's exactly what my goal is. I want people, when they come to my house, to just say, oh man. And I got to tell you, everybody that walks by the office and sees that tank says that exact phrase. It's just super impressive. And it's really the fish combined with the coral and the aquascape that do that. But like, that is absolutely the feeling that I'm looking for. And a little bit of this is absolutely judging your tank through other people's eyes. But these are people that love what you do and want to support you, which is totally different. Juror number 9, or I should say, Greg says 9 with potential, and I'll tell you why. Lots of things I'm looking for. Arches, caves, low enough to swim, not just over and under, but around. Awesome habitat-wise, going to grow into something really special. Not the first 7 that was said. Again, you know, he's looking for a visually impressive display, respects the animals. You can see it here. And this is the 360 that went in my house. So this was going to be the one that I built in my house. And if you followed along, you know that this tank had some challenges. And this is where the internet trolls, man, like really started to get in my head. Like, this is an area, man, where like finally after all these years, it kind of just built toward this moment, right? But you know what Joe Rogan would say? There's 1% of the population that freaks me out and no one's talking about. It's that 1% that leave negative comments on YouTube videos. Who are these people? You know, like, what's making them like want to go bash other people? Why would they do that? And who's dumber than them? Me. I read that crap. I know they're stupid. Still get upset. You know, it's crazy town. You know, when I see this, man, you know what it is? I feel like it's permission to be me. Because if it's affected Joe Rogan, man, it's okay to affect me. I'm a human being too. But man, if those trolls fortified their residence in my head at this moment in time. By the way, ChatGPT, I just can't believe that you can create these things in 4 seconds. Pretty amazing. All right. Well, they're sitting there, they're telling me not good enough. You know, not good enough, not good enough. Doesn't matter what I've done, man, not good enough. And if you ask me how I was doing, I'd probably tell you I was doing just fine. But in my head, man, I'm thinking, stop, give up. You don't know what you're doing. You suck. You're a fake. You're a failure. Stop trying. Nobody likes you. Just stop. It's really like kind of what you feel like eventually. It's inside of your head, man. It's ridiculous. And also, they're causing me to try to be someone I'm not. You know, I'm out there and I'm like trying to bling out this tank, you know, and I'm trying to like, you know, make it pimp your tank, and I'm trying to be like this, like, I don't know, there's like pressure to like create a TV show or something out of this. And I'm buying like fish that are cool, man, but like, it isn't really in my thing to buy $20,000 angelfish, much less like multiple. You know, like that isn't really the thing that I teach to everybody. And I'm not an entertainer, man, I'm an educator. You know, so I need to remember that. There's also a tank-like balance. Has anybody ever had this go out of balance for you? Yeah, that's everybody. So like, you know, sometimes a tank takes over your life. Man, sometimes your life takes over your tank. Sometimes you got to clean up things that are different than just your tank. And that's definitely my life at this moment. Also, most of you probably don't know this, but this is Andrew Dunneman. He's my business partner, you know, for 16 years. And he started in his early 20s with me. And then, you know, after all his years, he says, you know what, it's time for the next thing. And so he wants to sell the business. You know what? Like, he has every right to do that. You know, he wants to go do another thing, man. He's like, he doesn't want to do fish and reef for his whole life. He actually was never a reefer. You know, this is just a friend of mine. And you know what? That's great. Except for it also means that I'm going to give up something I love. Because, like, I don't know how to do it without him. And I don't want to go millions and millions of dollars in debt to be able to do this. So somehow I'm going to lose something I love in the middle of all this. And by the way, COVID's coming. We're all going to die. But my son was born, and I worked towards a tank life balance after that. We moved the tank to my office where I can see it all day long. And the world learns to live with COVID. Part of that is actually just embracing the things that bring us joy instead of the things that make us afraid. Andrew moves on. I transition to my new role from the owner to exclusively video production, which is fun. I'm reminded what the trolls have done for our hobby, which is like absolutely nothing, and probably really negative. And I'm also reminded that those people that love something are more powerful than those that hate something. You know, that all of you in this room that love something are the type of people that I want to be around and that I want to be inspired by and inspire. Because all the people that hate something, all those trolls, all you ever see, 100% of the things that come out of their mouth is negative and hate. What I hate, what I don't like, which is useless. So I'm freed from the shackles now. We're not actually filming this tank anymore. It just is in there in my office. I see it every day. I get to receive packages of fish randomly from Elliot. And we put corals in it, and it's just fun. It's just something that I enjoy now. It's not part of a video series. It's just part of my life. I get to make choices about it. I get to think about like gear and stuff I'm going to put in it without worrying about what everybody else is going to think about it. Now I happen to put these lights in there. That's actually my go-to thing. This is the thing that I like the most. But everybody doesn't have to judge whether or not, you know, why I would choose those things. So the answer is it worth it? Oh yeah, it's worth it if you're strong enough. Because this is the challenge that advanced reefers will face. Knowing when to push and then also when to sit back and enjoy. You have to take a step back and say that I'm going to enjoy this. And this is what, this ends up being my favorite tank. I found a new love, the fish. I learned the meaning of habitat, inspired the exploration of microbiome, as well as an application of both fish and coral parasite management. I'm amazed every time I look at this. It's a 12 out of 10. I exceeded my expectations. Whatever I thought I was going to do when I went into this, it exceeded it in the end. And so this was the hardest tank of my life, driven by 10 perfection, 10 troll, and 10 life. But you know where it landed? Right over here, man. And I would tell you that my joy for a personal tank exists at an 8 perfect and less than a 2 troll. I want the world to tell me like a little bit, you know, how to be better, especially my friends. And I want to push the limits, man. I want to be up there, and I really want to right the cusp, but I also want to be in an area where I can sit back and enjoy it as well. So what this really boils down to you is you could have just, you know, an anemone and some clownfish. It's beautiful in its own right. You could go on and you could have some new corals, some soft corals, some easy ones to care for. They're beautiful in their own right. You can move on, you can start doing some harder fish and a variety of corals. This is just an advancement of your skill set. And eventually you could put something together that's really special. And then even after that, you might think, oh, well, you know, I've climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. But you know what? Now it's time for something for you. Not that something that everyone would like, but something that speaks to you. A visually impressive display that respects the animals under your care. Something that just really says, you know what inspires me? This is it. But the goal is really this. Hold on to the joy. The thing that inspired you to want to be a reefer in the first place. That awe and the magic when you saw it the first time. Hold on to it and let it inspire you. All right. So next topic here. Where do we go from here, and what does truly epic look like? And as much as I like this tank, like I want to build this exact one, little biotopes all over the bottom, this is not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is truly epic, is our corals outlive their wild counterparts. You know what? Most hobbyists would say that's impossible. And you know what? Most people who dislike our hobby would also say that's impossible. But it would be a truly epic advancement if we could do it. I got news for you. Any farm corals are already likely achieved this. That coral right there, its biggest aspirations was to grow from a tiny little frag or whatever it was in the ocean and then grow into something that takes up some space. If it was lucky, it would spawn and it would create new coral. But you know what this one did? You know, something like this, you know, the team over Worldwide plucked a piece of it out, brought it down to Florida, farmed it out, now lives in Minnesota, now lives in LA, now lives in Chicago, now lives all over the country. This coral so greatly exceeded its lifetime expectations, man. We have definitely exceeded this. This coral is going to live longer in captivity than it would in the wild, almost certainly. And good news, it's happening at a scale like it's never happened before. When I started this hobby, nobody had anything like this. You know, this is now becoming the norm. This is where our hobby is advancing to. And good news, even in the ocean, corals are actually now produced faster than we can even use them. There's fields of acros that are grown in mariculture that we can't even sell them fast as they're growing there. We're creating new artificial reefs all over the place. But there's a requirement for everything else. We have to abandon the idea that corals just die. You know, and that's a problem because we have all done this at some point in time. You saw that first coral die, you went on the forum and asked why it died, and somebody just said, I don't know, corals just die. It's just not true. Something was wrong. You know, the diet was wrong, the water parameters were wrong, it was stressed out for some reason, something caused it. Good news, man, identifying why is the heart and exploration of curiosity in the hobby. This is the reason that we're sitting here. Somebody along the way said, nope, not good enough. Corals don't just die. We need to find out the reason. They found out the reason. 15 other people, followed that reason, and then 1,000 people did it, and we learned something new, and that coral became hard, went from hard to easy, and those problems don't exist anymore. So that's why we should do this. But I also respect for those that are at the forefront of these efforts. Does anybody here know who Nicole Bridges is? You should, because she's an inspiration. Got some. You know what she does? Her hobby is to rehabilitate coral. She goes out to local fish stores, finds the sick corals, the ones that are dying, brings them back to life, and she's got over 250 successful coral rehabilitations. Talk about a cool hobby. Cool yet? Man, she actually documents it. She's an engineer, so she has all these flow patterns and charts for what the symptoms are and trying to figure it out. She'll also give you the solutions for it. Go watch this talk. It's pretty cool. All right. But often it's just a misunderstanding of the animal's biology, diet, parasites, infections, environmental tolerance. There's just something about this coral that we don't know, that if we did know, those mortalities would just disappear. And so all it really takes for that epic goal is continued support for aquaculture, mariculture, and farmers. This is actually the 80-20, meaning the 20% of effort that produces 80% of the results. It just continues supporting the aquaculture and mariculture. Paths that produce 80% of success rates for today's easy common corals. Hard to fail is the goal. So let's put together paths where it's really easy for if anybody followed this exact way, they would be successful. And then also organize reefers exploring the answer to why some corals are seemingly harder. The goal becomes tomorrow's easy common corals. And the way that looks like to me is people like Nicole here working with 10 other reefers in their own little forum or group or whatever they're doing. All working to the same unified goal, hopefully with a leader like Nicole, so that we stay focused and we share information and we do it methodically, but we can find new things faster that way. Also truly epic would be our fish outlive their wild counterparts. Guess what? Most reefers or hobbyists would say that that's impossible. Most people who dislike our hobby would also say it's impossible. But you know what, man? It's absolutely achievable as an individual. I know tons and tons of people who have a clownfish that has lived 20 years. You know what? It's aspirational as a hobby, but without aspirations, we never get anywhere. So most of these things can be done. Copper bands were, dying in masses back in the day. Now it's a relatively easy coral depending on how you get it. All right, and I got to tell you, I learned a whole lot of things, and this is why I think that it's achievable as an individual, but also aspirational. Is that clownfish right there has lived about 18 years for me. It's been in a whole bunch of different tanks. You know what? This Achilles tang is living in here. I know full well that this tank has ick in it. There's just no signs of it because I figured out how to manage it to the best of my ability. I also know this Moorish idol right here, man. This is something that's got surefire death, not that long ago, but I got it as the size of a quarter. It just was about dietary issues. Fixed those things, man. Now it's super healthy and big, man. This is like a normal fish now, easy. I got these, 200-foot deep anthias, the Hawaiian anthias. It's just captive bred. Just don't go scoop them up from 200 feet and bring them up and hope for good luck, man. They get some and then they breed them and then you go to your house. All right, you know what? Copper band down here too. You know, this guy right here, this is like a fish that's just really skittish. It just transfers from the wild, you know, to your captive environment really poorly. It needs time to make that transition, and somebody knows what they're doing. All right, another 500-foot deep angelfish, man. Captive bred's a solution. Tilefish, this is something that dies all the time because you just like don't put a screen net top on the top of the tank. Easiest problem to solve. You know what? There's anthias as well. These are the purple queens and the Avanti anthias. You know, normally it is dwindle and die. It's just a caloric issue and making sure you're using food that is small enough that it recognizes as food. Easy. All those things are simple. But there's also a requirement for everything else. We abandon the idea that fish just die. Okay, and I remember the first time I encountered this. This was my yellow tang. It was thriving, had it for like 3 or 4 years. It was doing awesome. And then one day it died. Went on the forums, somebody told me, fish just die. I don't know. I mean, that was the best answer that anybody could give, because who's going to be able to identify that over the internet? That's ridiculous. I would tell you now, this is what I think really happened. What happened is I was feeding nori religiously, you know, because that's what I was told to do. But eventually I was like, I don't know, this thing eats mysis all the time. It looks like it's fine. You know, I don't know. No, why don't I just keep feeding mysis? Well, what am I going to know? How would I even know if it was a bad move? Well, it died, and I would a while later, and I would tell you it was probably this. It was probably that I was starting to feed it a high-fat, high-protein diet, and that it either got constipated and died because it just didn't have the fiber to keep moving that stuff through it, or it had organ failure because we were feeding it so much fat and protein when carbohydrates and fiber is its natural diet for the most part. So you just learn. And for me, it was stop listening to everyone and start listening to someone. And if you took all the people that I'd ever talked to fish about, you stacked them on top of each other, and then you multiplied them by 10, I've learned more from Elliot in the last few years than I would learn from any of that experience. Specifically because I know I can trust it. I don't have to go vet every last idea out of it. It just, what he tells me just works. And he would tell me that 80% of our fish, you know, can live longer in the aquarium than the ocean. Or actually, he didn't say that, but he's giving me the information that makes me believe this. I think all of these fish could live longer in the aquarium and the ocean. And I don't mean like the maximum possible lifespan, because very few things will ever live that. Just in fact that when done right, it's common for animals to live longer in artificial habitats in the wild, because the wild is like a wicked place, man. It's eat or be eaten. It's eat or starve. You know, there's parasites and stuff there too. You know, so the reality is like some of these fish can live 10 years, some of them can live 10, but for the most part on average, if you got a fish to live 5 to 7 years, it probably outlived its wild counterpart. You know, like that's just shooting from the hip here, but it's not that far away for sure. All right, so the information's out there. You just have to want it bad enough. So if you want to be able to have your fish outlive the wild fish, it's not that hard. I think you could actually do it with just 2 videos here. One of them is called An Obtainable Introduction to Keeping Saltwater Fish Healthier and Living Longer. The other one's 18 Essentials Everybody Should Know About Saltwater Fish. If you did those 2 things, you'd be so much farther in this than anybody else. And there's about 59,000 people that started that journey. You know what? There's 59,000 people that are probably more successful with their fish than the average person. But what if that number was 590,000 people? The whole hobby would be on a totally different trajectory. And that's where we switch from that individual success into that aspirational success for the entire hobby. Now I'll give you a couple of the tips that you would see in there, and you can start to see why this would help. You know, one of them is attention to introduction and aggression management. So if you haven't heard the talk about these isolation boxes, I never used these things until I met Elliot. But now you put this fish inside this little isolation box, it just lives in there, swims around, does its thing. It doesn't have to compete for aggression with other fish. It doesn't have to go find new safety spots and homes in it. It doesn't have to compete for food. It just like gets to live in there and like go from the wild where it was living to here, figure out its new life, and you know, do its thing. And you know why it's going to be way more successful? Because I have to deal with this guy. You know, this angelfish here, like very much would like to kill those other 2 angelfish. And if I opened up the door, he would do it right now. You know, but like now, because he's living in that little box, they're fine. And if I could tell you like one thing, like of all the fish that die on introduction day or introduction week, that box will remove 80% of them alone. 80% of the fish mortalities at new introduction erased from our hobby. with just that stupid box, you know? And we should find more ways to include that box and recommend them to others and make it easier for people to obtain them. All right, number 2 is implement a disease and parasite management solution. And right now, you're like 5 of you are probably like, oh, I'm not gonna do QT. Good news, I'm not talking about QT. I'm just talking about double the lifespan of your saltwater fish with proper disease and parasite management. So just respect the fact that those things are probably in there and do a handful of things that are easy to manage the fact they're in there. All right, 25,000 people have learned that lesson. But what if it was 250,000 people? The whole hobby would be on a totally different trajectory. 3, research and provide natural habitat. This was another interesting one that I got from Elliot, which was, he sent me some fairy wrasses. And then he sent me a video of these fairy wrasses where it's a rubble field. It's not your typical reef. It's just a field of rubble. And all the fairy wrasses are just darting in and out of this rubble. And that's just where they like to live. And so I got an inspiration. I went and built like a little rubble field out of Marco rock. I broke it up into pieces, glued it back together, and there's tons of little holes in it. And by that afternoon, the fairy wrasses had already moved in. They moved out of their old home and they moved into the habitat that they like, lo and behold. And so now what I do is I look for inspiration. You want to have an eel? Great, man, go video. Or go shoot, or look for Google for a video of the eel, look, see where it lives, man, and then try to recreate it. I did that, took a picture of it while I was building my aquascape. Now I tried to rebuild that into an area that fits kind of what its life looks like. You know what? Now that's what I do on all of my aquascapes. I stop looking on the internet for pictures of nice tanks. And I start looking for inspiration from the ocean. Find a reef that looks cool or a habitat for a particular animal I'm going to care for and try to recreate that, which is much more challenging and fun. We did it for the lionfish too. Lionfish likes to live in these caves. They're like an ambush predator. They like to sit in this thing and then come out. But I also like to put it in an area where I can see it. It's a display tank. So let's make it feel comfortable and put it in its ambush hole, but also somewhere when you walk up you can see it. All right, also, research and provide a natural diet suited to the fish's biology. So this was really hit home for me with the whole fiber thing and the Moorish idol, but also with the caloric intake of these fish. So think about it, man, protein and fat. These little clownfish, they'll eat a lot of different things, but a lot of it's little tiny crustaceans and zooplankton and stuff, which are largely fat and protein. So feed those. But here's our friend the Moorish idol, the tangs and all these things, man, carbohydrates and fiber. It's a totally different thing for your body to process, or their bodies to process, and they have evolved over many millennia. All of their organs, all of their intestinal tracts, all of these things, high fiber, high energy diet. Calories and size, these little anthias that everybody thinks just dwindles. Turns out they don't. I just have to feed them every other hour. And I have to feed them tiny little things that their eyes are like normal, or are like trained to see. You put mysis in there, it looks like food to you, it just doesn't look like food to them, because it doesn't look like that in the ocean. They eat these little tiny little bugs. And you can train them. Watch Elliot do it. He'll feed the little baby brine shrimp, which looks similar to that, and slowly weed them onto pellets, and slowly they'll figure out that mysis is also a food. But there's also other things. If you have a hard time with some carnivore fish, like those clams in a half shell are like a miracle thing. I think the ones that Elliot feeds are called manila clams. Yeah, manila clams. And so like you drop those things and they just go and they just tear it out, and it's just super fun to watch. And you can tell this is like a natural kind of like feeding behavior that triggers feeding behavior from other fish as well. But also the little baby brine shrimp thing. I've never actually done this before, but what a cool hobby, man, to breed the baby brine shrimp and transition some of your fish over. And then of course the pods. I don't think I'm gonna buy pods as like a food source, but I might buy them to like seed the population and use them like a refugium to make sure there's a consistent supply of a food that's important to this thing. All right. Also, there was a video not that long ago. It's called 10 Impossible Fish by Tidal Gardens. And Elliot and Than talk about these 10 fish that are impossible and nobody could do. Turns out you can do all of them, and almost all of it is diet. If you watch this video, you will say, oh my gosh, I just can't believe we've been treating this hobby like all of these fish are just a one-size-fits-all commodity and they all eat these little shrimp. That's it. It's just untrue. All right. And 5 out of 5, or number 5 here, is animals do better in clean, unpolluted water. Stop trying to find ways around cleaning the cat box, man. If you got a cat, you're going to clean out the waste, guaranteed, because your house is going to stink. It'd be awful. Cat's going to be pissed too. But in our fish tanks, man, we dump all this food in, And then we're always trying to find ways to not clean the box, meaning water changes. Now you can use technology to remove it. We can use the skimmers, we can use the filter socks, and we can use all this stuff to reduce that. But in the end, it doesn't replace some portion of these water changes. And I gotta tell you, you'll talk to 100 people, they'll tell you, oh, I don't do water changes and my tank's just fine. It's true. But all of them, every 100 of those, if you ask the question, hey, if you did 10% water changes, if you took a group of people that did 10% water changes and you took a group of people that didn't, who's more successful? 100 out of 100, even the biggest fans of no water changes would tell you the people that did them would be more successful. So why are we talking about it? There's some kind of miracle that you could pull off, but clean the cat box, man. All right, truly epic would also mean biology-focused methods producing 80% success rates. All right, explain what that means in just a second. But most reefers would say it's impossible that 80% of people would be successful. Everybody here knows how hard this is. So 80% of people being around, they would say can't be done. And many of the people that don't like our hobby would say it can't be done as well. Because the reality is it's on average about 10%. Now at BRStv, or BRS, and presumably because you watch BRStv, it's actually about 50%. The people that are looking for knowledge and find it are just way, way, way more successful than the people that don't. All right, so I believe it's possible. I think you can get all the way up there. Now I can't make anybody use it, but I do believe we can produce a method that if you followed it, 80% of people would be successful using it. It would transform the success rates of the hobby. It would transform how happy they are and what comes out of your investment in this. Really, I believe actually, it's just the only obstacle is desire. You just have to want this. All right, so why biology focused? I think a lot of people would probably identify with this, especially the older reefers. It's because the traditional reef approaches to reef are all product and gear focused. I'm looking at tanks, rocks, sand, pods, bacteria, power heads, returns, lighting, heaters, fans, chillers, battery backups, calcium additives, fish food, UV, QT supplies, skimmers, socks, all that kind of stuff. These are all products like a shopping list. This isn't like how do you actually maintain a reef tank. A successful biology-focused reef tank considers habitat, microbiome, respiration, prey nutrition, photosynthesis, element consumption, thermal energy, pollution, disease and parasites, and then the electricity that actually makes all that stuff run. The shopping list actually is secondary to that. How do I consider all of these things? How do I do them well? And then how do I figure out the technology that would help me do that? So we've put the cart before the horse in many cases. So I think it should look something like this. You'd have the primary components of this. And say I want to talk about photosynthesis. Well, the right spectrum, intensity, and coverage, plus CO2 and water and the photosynthetic pigments produce glucose, glycerol, amino acids, energy, and protein. It's that simple, right? Who couldn't do that? Well, a lot of people, man, because right intensity is kind of hard if I don't own a power meter, all right? I'm just kind of guessing for the most part. Spectrum, well, that's a Wild West. Most people don't even really know what the spectrum is in their lights, what they would actually need, much less a method of testing it. And the right coverage, oh, that's a conundrum, man, because almost everybody I know would acknowledge that big blankets of light are better for the tank, but I can't help it. I like those little cool small ones. I want it to be elegant and nice and looking on the tank, and I'll sacrifice that for the biology. Greg won't, because Greg cares about the animals that are in that tank. Yeah, so that won't happen the same way. But, this gets a little bit harder when you think about respiration. You think about respiration, you think of I don't know, is it hard to breathe? I don't know, not really. But is it hard to understand how oxygen takes that energy from photosynthesis and turns it into the metabolic process and everything that coral needs? Yeah, it's pretty complex. Most people wouldn't actually understand how all that works. But even something simple like pollution. Most people think about pollution as nitrate and phosphate. And they put the food in, turns it to nitrate and phosphate. So for some reason, they all believe that the only thing in that food was nitrogen and phosphorus, which of course is ridiculous. There's all kinds of other vitamin, mineral premixes and other things that are in there that, if not utilized, just build up in the tank. And because of that, we'll go back. Because of that, there's unintended pollutants. In the freshwater, there's impurities. Additives have trace elements. Trace elements sound great, but what if you have more trace elements than your corals actually consume? Now it's just a pollutant, builds up over time. It has impurities too. I've never seen a calcium additive that only had calcium in it. It has all kinds of other stuff. Stuff's mined on the ground. Foods, impurities. Air, impurities. Hands, impurities. Need a solution for that. All right, well, that sounds complex. But this is what it should look like, man. There should be a method. You only see the tip of the iceberg. The average person only has to see the top of this thing. Like the people that are producing the method below that would produce all the research, build the perfect method for you, make sure that we're all finding the right ways to do it. But the average person should just know like the shopping list essentially and how to put it together and the how-tos and general maintenance. We try to do that a little bit in episode 1 of this series, which is how to get 80% of the results with 20% of the effort. Let's boil it down to the only things you actually really need to know and get rid of all the other garbage. We also did it with an actual recipe in episode 2 of this series, which is the 9 core principles that you need for success. And if there was one video of the 2,000 videos that are on BRStv, if there was one that I wish that everybody would watch, specifically kind of intermediate reefers, because it's a little bit beyond brand new, it's this one. I'd recommend this above all others. There's some really cool stuff in the beginning, but about 18 minutes in, we're gonna show you the recipe on how to set up a reef tank, distinct quality advice that just doesn't waffle. Just do this and you'll be successful. But who's gonna create these methods? Who's gonna go out and start creating these methods that produce 80% of the success? They're based on biology, not lists of gear. And the additive businesses do this. This is, you've seen the Triton method, you've seen the Zeovit method, you've seen a bunch of other methods. And sometimes people repel from these things because they're really just a shopping list too. Like, hey, buy everything from me. I built a method that says, I'm the mecca of all great things, come buy it here. Okay, it's hard to not get over that. But sometimes, if it works, it was just right. That it's like just because somebody's making a profit off it doesn't make it bad. What if they're doing something great? Great, glad they're making a profit. In this case, I would just say the Germans generally do this better than others. They generally think not just like, how do I get additives in? How do I mix additives with, like food and coral food and filtration and light and flow? And they think about how all of this stuff works to produce biology. But it's not just these guys, man, because I think any business could actually do this. I certainly hope that Worldwide's out there, producing their method, and training it to their staff so they can train it to, the employees. Because, I don't know, I think like they actually have an obligation to do that to the people that are buying from it, but also it's in the great benefit of every employee in the entire place, man, that they have all speaking the same unified message that actually works, and that these customers will come back year and year again because they're so successful. I don't know, I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to create a method. Here's the problem though. I think there's like 30, 40, 50, 60 of these methods. Because we're not just talking about like, here's one miracle method that you could do that works, because some of you want a budget tank. Some of you want to like a, no budget hold barred tank. Some of you want an aggressive tank. Some of you want a nano tank. Some of you want like every single tank known to man. So there's kind of a recipe or method for all of these things. So I'm willing to do one, but if you're waiting on me, it's gonna come one at a time, and we're gonna be waiting for a while. I'll take my part. We can also look to our mentors and create this method, right? I'm laughing right now because Greg's like, no way, man, I'd never create a method. I don't even have to ask him, right? But here's the reality of it, man. Everybody that watches him sure wishes he would. Everybody that's watching his tank and what he's created and all of the experience that he's produced sure wishes that there was an egotistical Greg Carroll method out there, And it's only really egotistical to him and probably the trolls out there too. But everybody that loves what he does and loves his information would say, please, man, will you share this all in one unified place and help me be successful? So mentors like Greg would be a great addition if you just compile it all into one place and get over whether or not the trolls care and think about the people that love him and want the things from him. But also, I'm just shocked that this doesn't exist for reefing. The all recipes for reefing, So like, what this is all these are like home cooks, They put together a recipe, they built it out, and then they shared it with the universe. And that best chicken fried steak there, right there, has 1,506 ratings. It's not because the picture looks good. It's because somebody went in here, saw this, followed the recipe, and they produced the same result this person did and rated it 4.5 stars. In fact, 1,500 people did. The creme, the best just kind of comes, the creme goes to the top. I think this could happen for reefing. If you could document what it is you do that's the most successful, put it in these little recipes, we don't have to decide who's the best for ourselves and like bicker about it. And just let the creme come to the top. All right, so what's next for me? What comes after all of this? Well, after 16 years of producing a weekly YouTube show, 2,000 plus episodes, I needed a break. Now, I don't know if you guys know many YouTube stars that have been like doing this for 16 years, weekly show forever, that didn't take a break, because not many of those things exist. So it was just time for me to take a break. But if you find something you love to do, you'll never work a day in your life. And this is probably why I was able to do this for 16 years without taking a break, man, because I love what I do. And many people come to me at shows like this and tell me how much they love the videos. And normally my response will be something along the lines of, thank you for giving me my dream job. Because if you didn't care, I wouldn't be able to do this. This is my dream job. Exploration, discovery, sharing, and learning together, this is what I love. So the future hasn't unveiled itself to me yet, but it'll be different, because my beliefs are different than they used to be. I now believe that dandelions are beautiful, and take the time to appreciate all of them. You'll see that in the content that I produce. I also believe that reefers want success, can have it, all of them. And it's not just a belief now, what's different is that's my mission. A mission now means that I want every single person that seeks out this information to find it and have the success that I have. Which means the choose your own adventure kind of stuff of here's all the information, now just sort through it. Yeah, not good enough. We can do better. And I think we can do this. Again, 80% of the people that find this information producing any one of these things. And I don't just mean the easy ones. I think you could do the hard ones too. And I also want to do what I want to do and help people at the same stage of reefing that I'm in, which is I want to touch the stars. I want to push the limits and keep finding new things for myself and share that journey with other people. And I also want to find out what's next. I want to better understand, the spectrum of the coral, not just like in theory and science and how it works in the ocean. I want to actually apply those things in experiments and find out, does it actually produce better color? Does it produce more fluorescent proteins? Let's find out the answers to these things and find it compelling. Let's try more difficult fish. Let's try them to the point so they're no longer difficult. And I believe every animal in our care is worthy of respect, all of them. And that's a mission, which is different. Because in the past, I don't think that the hobby has always treated the animals with respect. Probably not the same respect that Greg Carroll treats his animals. And that should be the standard that we go after. That's my mission. So let's become the best marine veterinarians we can possibly be. Let's learn together more about our fish transitioning from the wild to their new homes. Diet, what and how much, disease treatment, breeding and respectful supply chain. But let's do the same thing with the corals, transitioning from the wild to their new homes. Diet, disease, farming, and respectful supply chain. And is it worth it? Oh yeah, it's worth it. Again, if you're strong enough. These are aspirational goals that we can get there if we try together. And respecting the animals is actually the core of a respectful hobby and why we should do it. One that's here for the next generation of reefers. We have to protect the hobby if we want it to be here for everyone. And if you believe what I believe, then come along for the ride as we find out what's next together. And I'll leave you with this thought. The more things that you read, the more things that you'll know. The more things that you learn, the more places you'll go. And will you succeed? Yes, indeed, yes, indeed. 98.75% guaranteed. If you have any questions, I'll see you in the hall.